Check, check, check. Check, check. Ugh. All good?
Hey, yeah.
You hear me?
Yep.
Awesome. Cool. Sorry, I have to use my girlfriend's laptop because my other laptop, all my chargers broke. So I'm like, fuck. But all good. Preview for the Lions game, your hometown.
I'll never call it that.
You'll
I'll never call it my hometown. Oh, God, I've got anxiety about this game, though.
Why?
It just seems like one of those ones that they lose. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a cynic. Maybe
there's
I'm
a
just a
difference
cynic about it.
No, there's a difference between being a cynic and being pragmatic and practical.
Yeah, I'm probably a little mix of both, I think.
Mm-hmm. Me too, because the Packers have a really tough schedule coming up, so they have to win this one.
Yeah, they have to, and the Lions have to, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Or else they're boned.
Yeah, this is a really big game.
Yeah. So I figured that we just kind of do a straight up preview about things.
Mm-hmm.
Since there's not really any kind of, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of like, like last week we had Breland and stuff like that. So it was like, there's a couple things to touch on, but I think really we just kind of straight up preview it, look at it from both sides and stuff like that. Unless there was something big that you kind of wanted to hit on.
Well, my big thing to hit on is Kevin King coming back and how they're going to match up with Golden Tate, because Golden Tate had a field day with them last year.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to be big. And then also the Detroit Lions, they're second in the league in pass defense, but they're dead last in run defense. So come on, McCarthy, put in Aaron Jones.
Yeah. I've got some things on that too. The running game. I mean, obviously that's like, at this point you have to talk about Aaron Jones, I think, going into any game.
And then on paper, statistically, they're actually, it's kind of sad, but on paper, they're pretty evenly matched.
Yeah, they really are. Like I was looking at
their stats, and they're pretty darn evenly matched. And it's kind of crazy to think they're both top 10 defenses on paper.
Yeah, I was actually kind of surprised to see that out of both of them.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see.
I mean, like realistically, the Packers could be in the same exact situation that they are in.
I know.
Right
that's what I'm thinking.
You know, they very, very easily could be 1-3 if it isn't for a miracle in the week one. You know, and then the tie, you throw that up either way, you very well easily could be, and you're basically a point away from possibly being 1-3, just like they are.
Yeah.
So the record, you basically just throw the records out for whatever you're talking about here. It's anybody's game.
Yeah.
All right. Let me get my timer set up. Oh, all right. Ready?
Yep.
All right, let's do it. Welcome in, everybody, to another edition of the Pack a Day podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to us today. My name is Dan Kottnick, my partner today, as always, Chris Schimmel. We are getting you ready for game day. It is Lions Week, edition number 1 this year in Detroit. Packers going on the road in the division for the first time this year against the Detroit Lions. As Chris is, kindly putting it, my hometown team is I'm right down the street from Ford Field, but there's no chance I'm ever going to refer to myself as a Detroiter. That just gives, especially someone that grew up in Ohio, it already gives me the willies to be living in Michigan as I do, but I'll never call myself a Detroiter, regardless of how good the Conies are here. I'll never call myself a Detroiter. But we're previewing the game today, Packers, Lions. Division matchup number 3 for the Packers already in week number 5. Like you said, on the road. It's into the schedule working out odd this way this year, Chris. Already having 3 division games, basically half of your division season, out of the way, and we're just about a quarter. We're just a quarter of the way through the season already.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is, it's not going to get any easier because
No.
in the middle of the season too, you got the Rams, you got the Patriots, all those teams. So it really doesn't get any easier. So I really think that this game almost is a must win. They have to go into this huge middle stretch of the season with a winning record.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's about as close to a must win as you can be in week number 5.
And what's scary is this is also a must win for Detroit as well. So this is going to be a slugfest.
Right. That's what I was going to say too. They're in a guaranteed must-win situation here because they're about to go into their bye week next week, week number 6, and you're already sitting at 1-3. Your only win is a somewhat impressive win against the New England Patriots, but even that one has kind of shown to be maybe a bit of an aberration.
Yeah, because Matt Patricia, being the defensive coordinator for the Patriots, he knows their offense, he knows their weaknesses, he knows the ins and outs. So he came up with a really good game plan against them.
And plus, also, I think the Patriots were kind of exposed as having a few more weaknesses than maybe we wanted to kind of let on with any kind of Tom Brady team going into the regular season. Maybe not as fast as in years past, and I think that really caught up to them against the Lions, kind of catching them on the road like they did. But we're talking about this week now, Packers, Lions. Overall feelings, Chris, as we head into the game today. Let's start with the offense because that was obviously the thing that got a lot of run in the press and was talked about a lot this week, especially with, or I should say, even with the way that the defense played, putting up the shutout like they did against Buffalo, the offense was the talk of the town for the whole week because of how poorly they really seemed to play in a game where they dominated. Your thoughts about the offense last week and how it's making you feel about coming into this week?
Well, I agree that the offense, despite the fact that, they put up a huge chunk of yardage, they scored only 22 points when it really should have been more like 35, given the opportunities that the defense was providing them with turnovers, sacks, and, of course, getting their first shutout since 2010. So I agree with Aaron Rodgers, and particularly it should flip more to the running game this next week because, Rodgers was saying you need to target Davante Adams more. Well, for this week, they need to target Aaron Jones more because they're going up against the dead last 32nd ranked run defense in the league. So this is Aaron Jones. Last week, he got 11 carries for 65 yards, and then against Washington, 6 carries for 42 yards. So you need to get those carries up against this Detroit defense.
And that, too, makes me kind of wonder. Obviously, the talk has been for the almost since week number 3 when he came back was Aaron Jones needs to be the number 1 running back. It's been pretty clear that he is the dominant runner of that trio of running backs between him, Williams, and Montgomery. And we saw it a little bit last week. He had the majority of the carries, even if it was just by a couple of snaps, or at least the majority of the snaps compared to the other two, which is a trend in the right direction for him. I don't wonder, though, Chris, with the Lions' run defense being as bad as it is, if it doesn't tempt Mike McCarthy to continue this running back carousel to keep all of those guys fresh and to attack that run defense a little bit more. Because, yes, Aaron Jones can have a career game against a defense like this if he is given the lion's share of carries. But in the way it seems that Mike McCarthy's mind and offense kind of works is always keeping these guys fresh and rotating them in. And if you're playing against a bad run defense, why not give everybody a share of that pie? Everyone gets a bite of the apple against a bad run defense.
Yeah, keep everybody fresh, keep Detroit honest because, last week against the Bills, Aaron Jones had 11 carries and Jamal Williams also had 11 carries. Difference, though, is Aaron Jones got 65 yards and Jamal Williams got 27. So I understand the point of keeping him honest, keeping him in the game. But at the same time, I feel Aaron Jones has deserved to at least have more of the carries instead of having an even amount of carries with Jamal Williams. I feel like he should be given a little bit more. But yeah, at the same time, keep him honest, keep him fresh, because this is a long season. It's a war of nutrition. So I understand the fact that you have Ty Montgomery too. So you have a huge amount of running backs to keep fresh, keep the defense honest.
And actually, Ty Montgomery kind of transitions us to the next part of this is Ty Montgomery. I wouldn't actually mind seeing. I know people that have listened to this before. I'm not the biggest Ty Montgomery fan in this offense. I think that he kind of limits what the running game can do a little bit, but I actually don't know if I would mind seeing more Ty Montgomery this week, but in the wide receiver position because of how injured this wide receiver core is and how really after Adams, Geronimo, and
Cobb,
Allison, Geronimo, who am I missing here?
Cobb.
Really bad. I'm really upset that I missed Cobb. Maybe that's because Cobb is the one that's actually ruled out for this game today against the Lions. So Allison and Adams, we don't know what their status is, still kind of questionable, listed as questionable. We don't know how much they're going to play, if at all. Behind them is all rookies. And you've got guys like Valdez-Scantling, who played last week and who Rodgers showed that he will go his way if called upon. But after that, there's not much. So I don't know if I would mind seeing Ty Montgomery take up some snaps in that wide receiver role.
Oh, yeah, and when he does, usually it's explosive. He had 2 receptions last week for 56 yards, so they were big plays. And, watching Thursday Night Football, the Patriots against the Colts, the way they utilize James White out of the backfield, I see that and think there's no reason why Ty Montgomery cannot be as valuable, as explosive as that. So I really think that they need to utilize him because, James White, he's listed as a running back, but really he catches more balls than he runs. And I think that's what they have to do with Ty Montgomery.
I agree. I wouldn't mind seeing that wrinkle in there. And again, also with the passing game, there's injuries to the wide receivers, brings up another sore topic, I think, that's been kind of hit on a lot, is the tight end position. And we saw more Lance Kendricks last week.
Unfortunately.
In that 12 personnel grouping that they do with Jimmy Graham and Lance Kendricks. And Jimmy Graham it seems like he's starting to kind of find a rhythm.
Yeah, he's molding. He's getting in there. But Lance Kendricks, not just in the passing game, but in the running game, he missed blockers. There was a run last week where he completely whiffed on the inside linebacker. And if he had just blocked him, got a piece of him, Aaron Jones would have, found daylight. He would have won all the way maybe to the end zone for a touchdown, but he missed on the block. And that's when I was thinking, if he can't catch and he can't block, put in Mercedes Lewis. You want to keep the running backs fresh? Well, then keep the tight ends fresh. Put in Mercedes Lewis.
Now, they were running Kendricks out of that kind of fullback tight end position that they have been playing around with a little bit, which I like that. I like that wrinkle in the offense if Lance Kendricks can make it work there.
Exactly.
And so far, I haven't really seen that. And especially with this game this week, today, Mercedes Lewis, I keep going back to him, is where does he show up in this offense? And against a very poor run team, why not put in another tight end that can run block better than anybody else in the league and just absolutely dominate that aspect of the game?
Not just run block, but also he can stay in and pass block as well.
Yeah.
So to me, I see it as a win-win situation. If it doesn't work out, then go back to what you were doing. If it does work out, then keep doing it. So, go 13 personnel sometimes if you need to, especially against this poor run defense. I think this is Mercedes Lewis and Aaron Jones coming out party.
I would say too. And speaking of coming out parties, we touched on the wide receivers, those young guys too. They have a chance to really explode onto the scene this week because this is not a very healthy Lions secondary. And if you can make the run game start to happen, things start to open up down the field, and there could be a chance for some of these young guys to make a name for themselves and make a case for getting more snaps in practice and in games, especially with how Cobb has really kind of the last couple of weeks has not handled these injuries well. It's the second week in a row now that he is not going to be playing. You need these young guys to step up, and it's why you got rid of Jordy Nelson.
Yeah.
Was to give these guys the room to grow.
Yeah, and especially with, Rodgers and them coming out saying we need to target Davante Adams more. You can believe the Detroit Lions are going to game plan for that a little bit. So if they put a safety over the top of Davante Adams, that means more one-on-one matchups for Geronimo Allison and more for the younger receivers to take advantage of. And especially if you run the ball against them well, that's going to open more things up in the passing game. So this is going to be a huge step for the young receivers.
You would expect with Davante Adams being the number one receiver, Darius Slay, their number one cornerback, is probably going to be blanketing him no matter where he goes. And like you said, too, could have a safety over top, whatever side Davante Adams goes. So this is a big chance for some of these young guys like Valdez-Scantling, who came onto the scene last week a little bit more in Cobb's absence.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and I was going to say another huge key to this game is red zone offense, because statistically speaking, both these teams have been piss poor in red zone offense. The Packers are 28th in the league. Detroit is dead last at 32nd. And check this out. At home, Detroit is 31st in scoring on only less than 17% of their red zone appearances. So this is going to be huge for the defense, especially given the fact that they didn't even allow a red zone appearance last week against the Bills. So this is going to be huge of whether or not they're going to keep this up against in the red zone.
And two, this is a chance for the defense to kind of, I think, rebound against the perception that has developed in the first couple of weeks. I know it's a small sample size, but they have had statistically good games against Mitchell Trubisky and Josh Allen, two rookies, or Trubisky's not a rookie, but still a young, inexperienced quarterback. They've been torched statistics-wise by Kirk Cousins and Alex Smith, two veteran guys with a veteran wide receiving core around them. That's what you've got this week against Matt Stafford, a very tough wide receiving core, probably one of the more developed ones as a whole. Maybe not the most explosive or best or biggest names, but as a wide receiving core as a whole, this is a pretty good one. And Matt Stafford back there is a savvy veteran who can really make things work in that passing game. They've got a very explosive passing game too.
Yeah, Matt Stafford, I tend to think that there are times where he's overrated and times where he's really underrated, because he's a guy who can come out of nowhere and torch you. And my biggest matchup for the defense is Golden Tate right now, because last year Golden Tate absolutely shredded the Packer defense. He had 7 catches for 113 yards one game, and then 7 catches for 104 yards and a touchdown the other. So I'm wondering, which corner do you want to see match up with Golden Tate?
I would say I think you put Jair Alexander on Golden Tate, because I think he's the one that's got the speed to kind of stick around with them. Jair or maybe Josh Jackson, one of those two. I wouldn't put King on him just because I don't know. I don't know if I'm still sold yet on what Kevin King can do this year because of how injured he's been.
He shows flashes of greatness, but the problem though is that they're just flashes. That's not going to do it in this league. You need to be consistent. So I would love to see Alexander, because not only does he have the speed, but he really has the swagger to back it up. You saw what he did. He shoved Josh Allen when he was surrounded by the Bills' offensive line. That just shows you that he doesn't take crap from anybody. So you're going to need that against Golden Tate.
Oh, you mean when he shoved Neymar? Because Josh Allen did a Neymar-style flop in front of the referee to try and draw that flag. That was the most. I would be embarrassed if I was a Bills fan watching my quarterback do that. The referee, even walking by him, they got a great shot of him just telling Josh Allen, "Get up." Nothing happened here. But yeah, I agree with you. I really like the kind of bite that you see out of Jair Alexander and what he's shown.
I'm watching that, of course, with some of my relatives, and they're old school guys. Be respectful, play the game the way it's supposed to be played. I said, think of the greatest defenses of all time. You think of the Steelers of the 70s, the '85 Bears, the Legions of Boom. what do those defenses have in common? They're not nice. They will knock you to the ground. And that's what I like about Jaire Alexander and Mike Daniels. They bring that swagger, and they need to keep that up.
You want to talk about old school? Jaire Alexander is playing old school.
I love
there
it.
was no respect back then. Look at Ray Nitschke was one of the most feared guys on a defensive side of the ball.
And I always
showed no respect for anybody.
Exactly. And, at the end of the game, you have all these players hugging one another. And I'd say to them, you think Ray Nitschke and Dick Butkus would hug each other at the end of the game? Old school. This is like the most nice pat the other team on the back league there probably is right now.
The Bears and the Packers used to have hit towels with numbers of the guys that they were headhunting to go hit in the middle of the game. You tell me that Jaire Alexander isn't old school. The guy is just backing up the talk that comes behind it. And that's what this secondary really needed. But you mentioned Golden Tate. There's other guys too. The Marvin Jones came in, and I don't know if this is just not being around or following the Lions as closely as maybe other teams, but the level of wide receiver that he hasn't kind of taken over that number 2 role. I would say he's almost in danger of losing it to the new guy. Kenny Golladay has really stepped onto the scene for the Lions this year in the passing game. He actually has the same amount of receiving yards as Odell Beckham Jr. coming into this week. And I know that doesn't maybe say a lot because the Giants offense is absolute but I mean, it still says that you've got a wide receiver. I mean, that's still a top 20 wide receiver in Kenny Golladay, and Golden Tate 9th in receiving. Those are 2 explosive threats. So it's not just Tate. It's this whole crew, and there really isn't just one guy that you can say, line him up against him, take him out of the game. It's got to be a team effort. And really, I think Jaire Alexander, Josh Jackson, and I hope that Kevin King has the kind of game this week, that says, here I am for the season. The rookies, yeah, they might be the talk and everything, but don't forget about this guy back here.
Do you know how we were talking earlier about how, Aaron Jones, Jamal Williams, keep them fresh, cycle them. Do you think they're going to have to probably do that with Kevin King to make sure he stays healthy?
I would say so. I think you would. And then, well, here's the other thing too. Bashaud Breeland, I think he's the biggest question mark coming into this week is how much, if any, does he actually get to play this week? Because
a lot of that, I feel, has to do with mentally, with him understanding the playbook.
Right, understanding the playbook, and also he's listed as questionable coming into this week. He hasn't had a ton of practice time. So how much do you get to rotate him into this game plan? I would say it probably depends on how the game is going. If you start to kind of dominate the game and control the tempo, keep the ball away from Matt Stafford, I would say, depending on the health of Breeland, you could rotate him in there with Kevin King in and out.
And, last week against the Bills, they held no receiver on the Bills, had over 50 yards receiving. And I feel a lot of that had to do with the consistent pressure from the Packer defense, 7 sacks. Now, I highly doubt Kyler Fackrell is going to have another 3-sack game. Maybe over the rest of his career.
Yeah.
So what are the odds of them generating consistent pressure against Matthew Stafford?
I think it's pretty good. This is not a good Lions offense.
So give me over under for sacks. How many do you think they'll get?
I would say if you're just doing it as a matchup of who's better than the other guy, I match up and I would say a 4-sack game is probably your over under. The thing is, though, Jim Bob Cooter, the offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions, is pretty savvy about how he runs things. And so I think he kind of realizes what it is that the matchup is, that he's going to have to get things out a little bit quicker, maybe shorten things up. And so to say if they get 4 sacks, I think 4 sacks is a very successful game for them, especially TJ Lang out for the game today. And he was really kind of the guy that controlled everything there. He has been a great player when he's healthy, but when he's not healthy, that offensive line really struggles.
Yeah. And then one big question for the Detroit Lions defense, both the Packers and Detroit, surprisingly, are top 10 defenses, at least on paper. Detroit hasn't faced a single team this year that's in the top 20 for total offense. So do you really think that the Packers have a chance of really, really developing their offensive swagger and going back to what they were doing 2016, 2014?
In this game, you mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I would hope so. Wouldn't you?
Yeah, I want to see a 30-point game. I want to see the Packers really show injuries. We can deal with it. 'Cause that's what I feel like. That's what like the great offenses in the league do. One guy goes down, put another guy in, change the system a little bit, and I think that that's what they're going to have to do. Because I just am sick of the excuses. Like it's like 2015. Oh well, Jordy's out. I don't want to hear any of those excuses anymore. I don't care about Devontae Adams was blanketed, double covered.
Well, and this is the step up game for both the offense and the defense. There's a lot of rookies on the offense and a lot of rookies on the defense that this week can be the game. It has the potential to be the game where they say, here we are. This is us. We are successful. We are not going to be pushed around. Washington was an aberration. The Vikings, when we see them again, is going to be a different story. This is still our division. 1 second. Hold on. I got to take care of my dog real quick. Hold on.
Okay, and then talk about the offensive line a little bit.
Louis, what are you doing? You gotta be quiet. You gotta be quiet. You gotta be quiet. Go. No, you gotta go. Go. Louis, go. You gotta be quiet. Go be quiet. No, you gotta go.
What kind of dog do you have?
Well, it's technically my girlfriend's parents' dog, and I was not told that I was going to be dog sitting for the weekend until like a couple days ago. So they had to leave, and so they basically came in, threw him into the building, and left. And so he's been like scratching at the door, whining, trying to get my attention. So I had to tell him to shut up for a second. He's like a little Pomeranian kind of thing, little
yapper,
yappy rat dog. All right.
And one more big thing that I was thinking of is the Detroit Lions. They're tied, actually, surprisingly, they're tied with the Packers, 4th in the league in sacks. How is this offensive line going to line up against them? Because I'm only sold on Bakhtiari and Lindsley. Other than that, Spriggs, I call him the revolving door. Kyle Murphy's out. Their guards, I used to say guards are a dime a dozen, but this is really proving to me that, even guards, they're super valuable. So how is this offensive line going to match up with Detroit?
Well, I think it all depends on how healthy they stay in this game, because last week you had the same offensive line the entire game, no injuries. Everybody played all snaps, and they handled a pretty aggressive defensive line, a defensive front out of the Bills in general. And so I think they proved to this. I think they proved themselves at least a little bit worthy that they can handle things like that. And the defense doesn't exactly scare me. The pass rush doesn't scare me that much for the Lions, especially with Ziggy Ansah is out this week. He's really kind of their main pass rusher. Nobody really scares me. I mean, Ricky Jean-Francois is one of their leading tacklers and sack guys. Yeah, how about that for a little throwback for you?
Wow, yeah.
and trust me, people in Detroit don't like him as much, or like him just about as much as people in Green Bay did. And so he is not a fan favorite. He's been kind of one of the ones that they have talked about as being the guys, one of the people that really quit in that Jets game in week number 1. They're not happy with him. They're not happy with the pass rush. I think they've padded their stats a little bit against a couple of opponents that don't have the best offensive lines or the best quarterbacks. So I'm not exactly scared too much about that. What I'm scared about is getting into an offensive shootout with this team, just because they have just a few more weapons offensively than Green Bay does when it comes to the wide receiving stuff. So I think getting into a shootout like this, it's one of those ones where anything can happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you have a game prediction score wise?
I'm gonna say it's very, very close. It's like I said, it's a toss up. I'm very worried because, and maybe this is because I listen to Detroit Lions sports talk every single day.
Are they confident?
No,
No, they're
well,
not.
here's the thing. This is the paradigm, or I should say, the paradox that is the Detroit Lions fan base. They are not confident in this team at all, and the opinion that I've gotten is that because they are not confident in this team at all, that means that they're going to win this week, because it is what they like to call SOL, same old Lions. Because it would just be the Lions thing to have a terrible year, start 1-3, and then have this game that they are expected to lose against the Packers at home and win it to get everybody's hopes back up, and then absolutely be terrible again the rest of the year, because that's exactly what the Lions do. And I'm sitting there listening to them like, this is exactly the game that the Packers lose. The one that they are supposed to win on the road against a division opponent, and it turns into a shootout where one little thing happens and it changes. I think it all depends on what happens at the very end of the game. I think it gets very close. I will still say the Packers win, but it's going to be a one score. It's within 2 points, I think. I think it comes down to that close.
Yeah, I think I'm maybe 31-28. That's probably me. 31-28, 30-27.
I would say probably around. I'm thinking like a 27-26. I know that's like the stereotypical 1 point score prediction, but this feels like it's going to be one of those ones that just comes down to the very end.
Yeah, I feel like I'm going to lose a lot of hair this NFL season.
Yeah, and if you want to lament along with Chris and I, we'll both be on Twitter during the game today. Make sure that you follow us at DK All the Way for myself, at Chris Schimmel for Chris, and make sure you're following the Pack a Day Podcast on Twitter as well, at Pack a Day Podcast, and Facebook too. Now we have to rep the Facebook page new this week, so make sure you follow us there too. Follow the podcast on all of your podcast streams: iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, Cheesehead TV as well is always pretty cool to check out there too. And obviously, you follow those, you're going to follow all the people, the great contributors that we have through Pack a Day Podcast, and also Cheesehead TV as well as there too. There's a lot of great guys that do a lot of work for the Packers, so make sure you're following us throughout the game today. You can screenshot all of my very cynical tweets that I'm sure I'm going to be tweeting, and then if the Packers end up winning, you can, shove it in my face. I'm more than happy to have that happen. But Chris, any final thoughts as we wrap up the preview today?
Well, this is probably, without a doubt, the biggest game of the year so far for the Packers. Need to go into this huge middle of the year stretch with a winning record. It's going to be a tough game, but I think they'll pull it out.
I think so too. We'll see what happens today. Thank you again for listening to the podcast today. Make sure you tune in tomorrow for our make sure you turn in tomorrow for our recap of today's game. For my partner Chris, this is Dan Kotnick saying, "Go Pack, go!" in Motown.
Go Pack, go!
Cool.
Hopefully, it gets a little bit better.
What's that?
I'm just talking about just the Packers.
Oh, yeah.
Going to get a little bit better. Because it's so difficult, because I was looking at Detroit. I look at the 4 games they played this year, and it's like, all right, they played against the 49ers. They have a different quarterback, so it's kind of hard to compare how they did against the 49ers. And then who else? Then, of course, they go up against, Dallas, which is, on paper-wise, Dallas. They haven't gone up against a single team with the top 20 offense. They have gone up against only one top 10 scoring offense. That's the Patriots at number 10. So it's just really difficult to just see what's going to happen. That's what I love about the NFL so much. I have no idea. Yeah, it's like the stock market. You don't know if it's going to go up or down.
Yeah. pretty much. And that surprised me too. The Patriots not a top 20 offense. You just always assume.
Yeah, and I think part of that was because of how poorly they did against Detroit. Take that game out, they're top 10.
Right. Yeah, probably. I would say so.
Yeah. So when's our next one? Our next one's pretty soon, I think, right?
I think we might be this Wednesday.
Yeah, another one this
I
Wednesday.
think, yeah. I'm pretty sure. I haven't looked at the schedule yet, but if if it's still working out where it's every other Wednesday, we should be this Wednesday.
Okay, and so this Wednesday, let's talk about what we should specifically talk about on Wednesday, because can't do a specific recap of the game because Monday and Tuesday will be that, and then Friday, Saturday will be more of a preview for the game.
Mm-hmm.
So should we talk about more on just the state of the union, basically, for the Packers?
I think so. I think it kind of depends on what happens in this game. Because if something drastically happens this week, it could be something that we need to be talking about all week.
Right.
I think as an overall, just talk about kind of what's going on, because I think hopefully because this is our next one on Wednesday, that'll be the game coming up is the game before our bye week. So I think that would be a good one to kind of just state of the union. Where are we at now? What do we want out of this last game before the bye week? Just basically where we sit right now heading into the bye.
Yeah, and then of course play the Rams and the Patriots both away. So this is going to be really, really tough.
Yeah. I don't know if it maybe look ahead to like kind of that mid section of the season wouldn't be the worst thing.
Well, it doesn't need to be like a 5-minute conversation, just a minute, just talk about it.
Just a little quick hitters.
Yeah, just give the people, because a lot of people probably don't even know who they're playing in the middle of the season. So
right.
So cool.
All right. Well, I'll get this edited and sent in, and be solid.
Cool.
All right.
Good.
I'll talk to you on Wednesday.
Yep. Have a good weekend, man.
Yep. Later, dude.